Hey folks, I recently had a lot of fun with a project that I put together that I think that you'll enjoy. And it's a book, but it's a book about some fun things to listen to and read about and watch on TV. And it's about someone in particular that a lot of people are familiar with, and that is Perry Mason. However, I'm talking about the Perry Mason of the books that Earl Stanley Gardner wrote. Not as much about the TV show, even though that comes into play. Because my main theme is here's the book: Cocktails, Coquettes, and Cigarettes. Perry Mason Concoctions. So I do talk about in this book some things that you'll see in this picture right here of the characters Perry Mason, Della Street, and Paul Drake having a meal and conversation, a cocktail and lighting up. And usually when that happened, they were in the vicinity of a coquette, also a flirt, basically, is what that word is about. So what will you find in this book? I just want to say a couple of things. One of them is that I have gone through every single one of the Perry Mason books, and there were 82. And there's the table of contents. It starts with the 1930s, and that's what I have it broken down into, is the different decades in which Gardner was writing. The 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. And the fun thing about the book is this right here. I have rated each book depending on how much cocktail, coquette, and cigarette fun there was to be had in all three. So, for example, right here, if you just had one, then you were devoid of the three C's, and that's a sad face. Now, however, if you have two coquettes, then that references all three of the C's, though not in abundance. And there were a few of Gardner's books that hit all four of the coquette, cigarettes, cocktail quotient. And those are saturated in alcohol, loose women, and smokes. I also have this divided, as you can see, with each decade that he was writing. And I've said on this page that starts it, I give a little quote from one of the books, and I put the top three of that decade, in my humble opinion. And the top one of the 30s that I decided was the case of the shoplifter's shoe. Now, here's a cover of Shoplifter's Shoe. Now, this is not from the 1930s book, of course. You could tell by looking at that illustration. This is from a reprint of 1972. And this is one of the things I love about the old paperbacks from the whole time period, 30s through the 70s. They were certainly trying to sell you this book. And this is not necessarily the representation on here. It's not really what this book is about. But it's a very good book. But there's really not a scene in there where this man and a woman are on the floor and he's, holding her foot in a shoe, and there's a gun and a string of pearls next to him, and she's in her underwear, basically. I guess it could be a bathing suit. But man, that probably sold some books. There are a couple of lines in this book that I think are really fun. And that's one of the things I point out in the book, too, is some of the really witty lines, because Gardner was a great pulp fiction writer. There's one line in the book where a guy's looking at Paul Drake, and he's thinking, well, he's not a detective. And his reasoning for saying he's not a detective is this: detectives don't take off their hats. Well, if you're familiar with the Perry Mason TV show, there's only a few episodes where Paul and Perry are both wearing their famous fedora hat. That was dropped kind of early on, but throughout the books they wear them. There's another, I'm going to stay on Paul Drake here just for another second. There's another line when Perry is talking about Paul, and he's saying he can be incredibly trusted. And he says, Paul's like a dime bank. Things go in easy, but you have to break him to get them out. So that's just a little bit about what my book's about. And my Facebook page is going to just have a lot of fun stuff about those three C's on it. and things from LA in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and into the 60s, and just about the whole book series and the fun things that you can find there and why they're still immensely readable. Thank you.